Revenge with Karen. She's mostly here for decoration, he said, all smug chuckle and cufflink contempt, like my 6 years of late nights and forensic spreadsheets were just window tinsel in his quarterly circus. Laughter bounced off the glass walls, forced, nervous, the kind you make when the boss's joke tastes like battery acid, but you've still got mortgage payments. I didn't blink. Just smiled the way women smile when they've been publicly gutted by a man in a nicer watch. We're 24 minutes into the pitch. Forecasts were sailing across the screen like gospel. The board looked half bored, half beguiled. And there he was, clicking through my compliance report like it had descended from heaven via his own 2 miracle hands. Not a single mention of who built it, not even a nod. Just him, white-knuckling the mouse like he'd personally slain the dragon of federal tax law. And I just sat there, still, contained, burning like a church in a lightning storm. That moment, that precise moment, is when the ember lit. I didn't need applause. But hell, I wasn't going to let the man who once asked me if compliance meant making the IRS happy strut around with my work stapled to his ego. By the way, if you're still listening this far in and not subscribed, what are we doing here? 97% of y'all just ghost these stories like my raise last quarter. Hit the like, smash the subscribe. It keeps this chaos rolling and frankly, it keeps the team caffeinated enough to survive. Anyway, after the meeting, he slapped my back like a frat boy who just finished a keg stand and said, "You make my job so easy." I said nothing. My mouth did its best impersonation of friendly silence while my brain ran 50 miles ahead, cataloging dates, screenshots, Slack threads, and backups. See, that report, beautiful 38-page beast he bragged about. It wasn't just numbers and legalese. It was bait, laced with quiet landmines. Each one planted months ago when he told me offhand, off the record, off his moral axis, let's not worry about that line item, just make it look good. I kept receipts. Literally. I flagged the discrepancies. Subtly, nothing bold, nothing obvious, but enough for an auditor with a pulse and a magnifying glass. That night, didn't rage or cry or go full glass of wine and scream into a throw pillow. I logged into my personal OneDrive, uploaded my final draft with version history, attached his directive emails, worded just carefully enough to be plausible deniability, just sloppy enough to burn. He wanted credit? Fine. He'd get every last bit of it. The office after a pitch is always weird, like post-coital silence, but with worse lighting and more passive-aggressive Slack messages. People drifted past my cubicle murmuring things like, "Great job today," and "You really held it together," as if I'd just finished CPR on a dying dolphin, instead of getting backhanded by the CFO in a Brooks Brothers suit. I was back at my desk, which, by the way, was basically the Bermuda Triangle of broken promises. The printer always jammed when I used it. The thermostat never respected my personal climate, and my ergonomic chair had a vendetta. I opened my laptop. There it was, the report he paraded like a home run, still warm in the file system, still marked draft V7 final for real this time. God help me. Then, like clockwork, his email dropped into my inbox. Subject line, quick cleanup needed. Message, hey, need you to rush the compliance doc. Just make it look clean. No deep dives, make it look clean, not be clean, just look it. Right there is corporate code for lie to me in Helvetica. I scrolled through the doc. Paragraph after paragraph of fiscal tightrope walking. On page 12, a number caught my eye. It was a small rounding discrepancy from 2 years ago, $7,800 off in deferred revenue. My notes from that time had a little scribble. CFO says fudge it. Too minor. Keep the boat afloat. Another one, $32,000 misfiled as operations instead of promotional expenses. Don't split hairs. Board won't notice. It wasn't embezzlement. It wasn't Enron, but it was enough. Death by 1,000 ethical paper cuts. I sat there, heart thudding like a muffled drum solo in my chest. I could fix it. Could whitewash the whole thing. Hand it to him sparkling like a baked Pinterest lasagna. Or I could do what I'd already halfway done. Leave the dust in the corners. Let the cracks show, but faintly, like bruises you only notice in the right light. That's when I opened 2 windows side by side. Version A, squeaky clean, CFO approved. Version B, the honest but subtle masterpiece, flags tucked in like love notes between the lines. Nothing that screamed, I'm a whistleblower. Just breadcrumbs. Small inconsistencies left in on purpose. Soft highlights. Careful phrasing. It was like making a murder weapon out of office supplies. Oh, fingerprints. but if you looked close enough, it told a story. I stayed late that night, didn't even notice when the janitor vacuumed around me. Somewhere between pages 17 and 24, my simmer turned steady. Not rage, not vengeance, just clarity. The quiet kind that comes when you've already decided what kind of person you are, or aren't, and I wasn't going to be his cleaner. "Let's just keep things streamlined," he said, oceaning me into his glass fishbowl of an office. "Saves time if it comes from me directly. One voice, clean optics." He spun his pen between his fingers like a magician pulling rabbits out of SEC violations. I didn't blink, just held the folder in my hand, version B, the one with the rot preserved like a peach in formaldehyde. "Of course," I said, smiling so hard my molars cracked. "Whatever's easiest." He didn't notice my tone. He never did, and like him heard tone the same way they read fine print, only after the lawsuits. I laid the USB on his desk like it was communion bread, like it was nothing. But it was something. It was a live grenade with the pin tucked between my fingertips and a prayer to the gods of forensic accounting in the metadata. He popped it in, scrolled through like he was checking restaurant reviews, and nodded. "This is great," he said. "Knew I could count on you." "Yeah, you could, right up until the part where the ground opens beneath your loafers." He pulled up the federal e-filing site and clicked through the signature process with all the ceremony of ordering DoorDash. Digital signature. Done. A soft chime. Report submitted to board. Report submitted to compliance portal. Report submitted to IRS. Boom. He leaned back in his leather chair, hands behind his head, that same smug little smirk plastered on his face like it had been tattooed there by decades of dodging consequences. "That's that," he said. I nodded. "That's that." And then I went back to my desk and quietly built my arc. Every email, every version history, every timestamp, Slack snippet, voice memo. I screenshotted the e-filing confirmation, his name at the bottom, proudly claiming authorship of my time bomb. I copied it all into a zip file titled Q4 handoff and sent it to my personal drive. Made 2 backups, one in the cloud, one on a flash drive I taped behind my desk drawer like some paranoid accountant prepping for nuclear audit. I even took a photo of the moment he clicked send, timestamped it on my phone, and airdropped it to my backup account like I was curating the downfall of an empire. Know that feeling when you push a glass off a table and just watch it fall? The weightless second before impact? That's what it felt like. He thought he'd saved time. I just started the clock. By Thursday, he was practically floating through the office, arms wide like a Wall Street Jesus. "The numbers are airtight," one of the board members said during the recap call. "Cleanest filing we've had in 5 years." And there he was, basking like a lizard in fluorescent praise, nodding solemnly as if he personally hand-fed each decimal into the system with a golden ladle. I stayed quiet, took notes, pretended I didn't exist beyond my keyboard clicks and coffee rings. My inbox was already a snake pit of follow-up requests, but I was moving like someone packing to disappear. Methodical, quiet, permanent. I started using my lunch breaks to label personal files. Dental, 401k, personal references. The thickest one, insurance, legal. I backed everything up twice again, this time on a new drive I slipped into my coat pocket. Not paranoid, just prudent. If they thought I was just window dressing, they'd never notice I'd started locking cabinets and wiping whiteboards. And then I heard it, just outside the kitchen, 2 VPs whispering like teenagers behind a locker. CFOs being floated for COO. Boards impressed. After that IRS-ready filing, guys, bulletproof. Bulletproof. I almost laughed, not a full laugh, just the dry, cracked chuckle of someone watching the roller coaster tick higher, knowing the drop is coming and that the harness is loose. It should have made me furious. But it didn't. I felt tired. A strange cocktail of bitterness and something worse, guilt. Like watching a man walk toward an open elevator shaft while holding the map you drew. He chose the path. It just didn't stop him. That night, after a dinner I didn't taste, I logged back into the IRS e-filing portal. My heart flickered as I opened the status tab, and there it was. Under review action opened, a date stamp, a case number. I stared at it for a solid minute like it might vanish if I blinked. It didn't. It just sat there, silent and humming with potential, like a distant engine revving in the fog. My breadcrumbs hadn't gone unnoticed. I minimized the screen, closed the blinds in my office, and just sat there, alone in the after-hours buzz of floor lamps and server fans, feeling the shift. Something tectonic. A gear inside the machine had slipped, and I was the only one who heard it. Monday morning came wrapped in stale coffee and corporate dread. Our standing finance sink had been moved to the executive conference room, never a good omen. I walked in behind a herd of khakis and knockoff colognes, sat in the corner, and watched as the CFO clicked through a dry PowerPoint titled, Emerging Trends in Federal Oversight. Slide 3 had the words Random Audits in bold. Slide 5 mentioned tech sector prioritization. Slide 7 showed a list of compliance red flags that read like a scavenger hunt of everything I'd quietly left in the report. I watched him read it with the glazed confidence of a man who thinks fires don't burn him, only warm him up. Nothing to worry about, he said, chuckling, clicking next. These are just scare tactics. But let's be sharp, we're clean. Then, glancing over his shoulder at me like I was a secretary with a nervous bladder, he added, let's make sure you're available, though. You know, in case they ask dumb questions. Dumb questions, like who signed this? Or why is revenue recognition off by $32K over 3 quarters? Or maybe just what the hell happened here? I nodded, smiled, ate a soft MHMM, and jotted down notes I didn't need to take. Then I went back to my desk and began quietly deleting myself from the machine. First, I revoked my own access from all non-essential shared folders. Then I unlinked the compliance dashboard from my Slack. Next came the passwords, encrypted, rotated, hidden under layers of plausible deniability, scrubbed my data on anything I'd touched in the last 6 months, and renamed personal files to things like Q3 Social Lunch JPG, even though they were screenshots of Slack messages where he told me to round down because the IRS doesn't do algebra. I didn't ask anyone for permission, didn't flag anything to IT, I just moved like a ghost with a checklist. And somewhere in that silent sweep, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. Not of him, not of the board, not even of the IRS. Because fear is what you feel when you still care how the story ends. When you still think maybe you can fix it, smooth it over, come out clean. But I'd made my peace. My hands were off the wheel, and the car was still accelerating. That afternoon, he strolled past my desk with a grin like nothing had shifted, like he didn't smell the gasoline in the air, made a little joke about auditors being government mall cops and winked. And I just smiled back, like a bomb technician watching someone juggle grenades with the pins still in her pocket. They wrote me up for skipping a department happy hour. Not for late reports, not for ethics violations, not even for rolling my eyes when Brad in accounts payable called me the spreadsheet whisperer. No, a write-up, not sipping warm Chardonnay in a strip mall Olive Garden knockoff, while pretending to laugh at the CFO's latest story about his golf swing and how he crushed Q2 like a tight list. I signed the HR form with a dry smile and left it on my manager's desk without a word. She gave me the look, half sympathy, half please don't burn the building down on your way out. Later that week, during the weekly all-hands meeting where motivation goes to die, CFO clapped his hands together and dropped the big announcement. I'll be taking point on next quarter's audit. Feels good to lead from the front. There were scattered claps, a few polite nods. I just stared at the bagel I hadn't touched, imagining him strutting into that audit room like Caesar entering Rome, unaware the Senate had already unsheathed their daggers. That evening, I stayed late. No one noticed. They never did unless something was broken. I started with my personal files, family photos, tax returns, that resignation letter draft I'd been tweaking like a novelist hiding in a cubicle. Gone. Wiped. Backed up onto an encrypted flash drive now resting safely in my purse beside a half-melted chapstick and a USB-labeled plant watering schedule spoiler. It wasn't. Then I opened the whistleblower logs, every Slack export, every spreadsheet version, every timestamp, meeting invite, whisper of wrongdoing. I zipped it all up, encrypted it, and sent a copy to a private email account no one at the company knew existed, an inbox I created 4 months ago, under a pseudonym only I would recognize if the hammer ever dropped. By the time I shut down, the janitor was vacuuming near reception, humming something off-key and joyful. I passed him on the way out, smiled, and made a mental note to bring him coffee next week. Or not. That weekend. I didn't work, didn't check emails, didn't reread my notes or refresh the IRS portal like I had for days on end. Instead, I sat on my porch with a blanket and watched the rain chew through the gutters. Everything felt, still, not peaceful but expectant, like a breath held too long. Sunday night, I packed my laptop bag but left out my badge. On Monday morning, I walked into the office, logged in, tied up the last of my documentation, left at exactly 10:14 a.m. Didn't announce it, didn't ask permission. Just stood up and walked out. Left my badge on my monitor like a calling card. No note, no warning. The storm was coming, and I wasn't planning to get wet. At exactly 10:14 a.m., my chair sat empty, badge folded neatly beside the monitor like a flag on a coffin. My inbox was closed. My Slack was silent. My login credentials were already scrubbed from the system like I'd never existed. Downstairs, two men in blue windbreakers walked through reception with the casual confidence of people who don't ask for permission. They had briefcases, neutral expressions, and the kind of shoes that say, "We're not here for coffee." The front desk froze mid-greeting. Security straightened up. Someone dropped a pen. By 10:26, word was already spreading like black mold through drywall. Those IRS agents. Did we get audited? Why now? By 10:34, the CFO was paged to the 11th floor conference room. The big one. The one with the frosted glass that doesn't quite mute your panic when someone raises their voice. He didn't look worried, not at first, just confused. A little too calm, like a man who thinks the plane's just hitting turbulence, not losing an engine. At 10:41, I got the first text. From Leela in marketing. Of all people, did you hear? IRS just walked in. They called for Marcus. I let the screen fade to black, didn't reply, because I was nowhere near the building. I was down by Lake Pendle, watching geese bully a toddler for animal crackers. The water was gray, lazy. The wind had that early autumn bite to it, the kind that tells you things are changing whether you like it or not. I sipped gas station coffee and scrolled casually through my phone until I opened my secure cloud drive. Activity log, 10:39 a.m. file opened. File name, Q4 handoff zip IP address, internal conf room router. The audit trail had been accessed. The fuse was lit. I leaned back against the bench, phone in my lap, coffee cooling between my fingers. No rush, no heart spike, just stillness. Bone-deep quiet that only comes when you've handed over every truth, every receipt, every ghost of a conversation you weren't supposed to remember. And now all that's left is gravity doing what it does. He wanted credit. He wanted ownership. Now he had it, all of it, including the part where the discrepancies, small, quiet, insidious, pointed straight back to the man whose name was stamped proudly on every page. He sat stiff across the conference table, trying to keep the sweat from staining his collar. The IRS agents weren't shouting. That was the worst part. They didn't need to shout. Their voices were low, deliberate, like surgeons walking you through the steps before they crack your ribs open. One opened a binder thick enough to kill a man. The other clicked a pen. Let's begin with page 9. Line item, deferred revenue discrepancies, Q1 to Q3. The CFO leaned forward, squinting like the numbers were suddenly written in Sanskrit. He cleared his throat, tried that practice smirk, the one he used on board calls and interns he didn't remember hiring. Well, those figures were compiled by, my team. Standard rounding protocols, nothing major. The agent didn't blink. Just slid the report toward him. Your name's on the signature line. Silence. Just the air conditioner wheezing in the ceiling. Also have a flagged internal memo dated April 3rd, the second agent said, flipping to a page marked in red. It includes instructions to your compliance analyst, quote, make it look good, don't split hairs, board won't notice. That's when he reached for his phone, fumbled through contacts with shaky thumbs, found my name, hit call. Nothing, again, still nothing. He tried Slack. Dead, email, bounced. By the third attempt, he was white in the face, mouth twitching like he'd bitten into something sour. He glanced up at the agents and forced a weak laugh. Weird, she must be out sick. According to HR, one agent said without looking up, she left her badge on her desk. No record of resignation. But also no login attempts since 10:14 a.m. He blinked. Seems like poor timing, the other added. The CFO gripped the edge of the table, knuckles blooming pale. I didn't draft the report. I reviewed it. But then why sign it? The question landed like a punch. No emotion, just curiosity. The kind that says we already know. He stammered something about trust, delegation, team efficiency. They flipped to the attachments, the backup emails I'd embedded in the audit trail. Every directive, every don't worry about it. Every quiet little nudge toward dishonesty, preserved in context and time zone. This one's from your company email, the agent said, rotating the page. Told her to fudge the accruals for promotional spend, yes. He didn't answer, because there was no answer. Just that sinking feeling. That tidal realization that no matter how many board dinners you survive, or interns you manipulate, or reports you hijack, eventually, the math comes due. He stared at his own signature on the bottom of the page, and it stared right back. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, but the silence on the floor was anything but soft. Friday, 3:42 p.m. Desks were still full. Eyes were red from staring too long at screens, or maybe just from pretending nothing was unraveling. I walked in like a ghost in daylight. Nobody knew whether to wave or vanish. I didn't make eye contact, just walked with quiet purpose toward my cubicle, where everything still sat exactly as I left it. Monitor off, mousepad crooked, badge folded beside the keyboard like a funeral napkin. I brought a cardboard box with me. It felt poetic. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, the CFO, slumped by HR, face gray and sagging like a wet paper receipt. His tie was loose, shirt untucked. A man whose confidence had been peeled off with a cheese grater. Security stood nearby, pretending not to hear him breathe like a dying engine. His eyes locked on me the moment I picked up my favorite pen. The guy was the final riddle in a language he never bothered to learn. He broke away from the HR rep and crossed the floor fast, box in his hands, papers slipping around inside like loose bones. He didn't speak until he was inches away, too close, his voice a hoarse whisper wrapped in desperation. Whose name is on the signature line? I met his eyes. No smirk, no gloating. Just the calm that comes after the storm, when the wreckage is still, but the damage is irreversible. Yours, that single word, yours, it cracked something in him. Not loud, just final. Like the last page of a story he thought he was writing, only to realize too late the ink was mine. He wanted to say more. I saw it behind his teeth. Excuses, accusations, bargaining maybe. But I turned and walked before he could conjure them. I passed the conference room on my way out. The doors were just closing. Inside, board members, attorneys, IRS agents, binders everywhere. The kind that don't ask if you're guilty, they prove you are. He followed the guards without resistance. I didn't watch. By the time I stepped into the elevator, the weight was gone. The fear, the guilt, even the anger. All of it stayed back there in that glass box of delusion and decimal points. I didn't falsify anything. I didn't leak. I didn't twist numbers or manufacture lies. I just let him sign what he told me to make. Now he's explaining his airtight numbers to federal agents with magnifying glasses and subpoena power. The moral? There isn't one. Just a desk that's empty, a name on a report, and a woman walking away free. What I love about this story is the restraint. She didn't scream, didn't sabotage anything. She just let the truth breathe. There's something chillingly beautiful about watching someone hoisted by their own ego. It's a reminder. Sometimes the sharpest revenge is just letting people sign their own downfall. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.